How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Nun Daled, Daf 54 of Masechta Nazir. Friends, well, we did a whole bunch of Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph. So we're going to start the Mishnah towards the bottom of Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph. We're going to talk about things that the Nazir does not sort of start over for, and we're going to get into the sugya of the tumah of the lands of the nations, the places outside of Eretz Yisrael. And I think we'll tackle Lamaisa, probably do about half of Daf Nun Hey Oichet. So let's go weiter. So we're going to start in Daf Nun Daled Amud Aleph towards the bottom. Says the Mishnah, Aval Aschochis v'Aprois. Okay, so like trees that are overhanging, as the Gemara is going to say, or like stones that are overhanging some place, and there might be a dead body. There's like different branches or different stones, and there's a dead body under one of them, but you're not sure which one. Okay, Beis HaPras. Who can tell me what a Beis HaPras is? Beis HaPras is a field that there's a grave in the field. Okay, fine. So there's a field that has a grave in it. But then what happens is the field gets plowed. And there's a concern that maybe some of the bones got swept away with the plow, and therefore, midrabanan, out of concern that some of the bones may have gotten swept away, the area surrounding the grave is tamei midrabanan. Ve'eretz ha'amim, the lands of the nations, v'agol v'adofek, the cover of a coffin as well as the sides, v'revi'ez dam, and a revius of quarter of a log of blood, over atzomis, or a quarter of a kav of bones of a mace in a oil, v'chelim anogim b'mace, or vessels that touch a corpse. I think we're talking about metal vessels. I think it's because of cherev areu kichalo, that basically if metal, I think maybe it's machlokas, but let's just say if metal comes in contact with the corpse, so the metal itself becomes in aviyavo satuma, so it'll be metamed the individual. But if the person becomes tummy as a Nazir, he wouldn't have to shave and start over that whole thing. Okay, uvimei sifro, uvimei gemaro. Now, this talks about a mitzora. A mitzora, so there's like different stages of mitzora. So mitzora, when he sees what might be tzaras, so he shows it to the Kohen, he goes into quarantine. So that's what's called Yimei Hasgero. That's when he's in quarantine. But then after he's in quarantine, if it turns out that it's actually tzaras, then there's what the Mishnah calls Yimei Gemaro, when he's been confirmed as a mitzora. So then that's his, he's actually tummy as a mitzvah. And there's the Sifra, which is once he becomes pure again, once he's healed from his tsaras, so then he, part of what he does is he shaves all the hair of his body, but then he has to wait a week and he shaves his hair of his body nachama. So that week in between the two shavings of all the hair of the body is what's called Sifra. Al elu en anozir migalech. So for these cases, in all of these situations, the Nazir does not have to shave his head out Nazirus, right? Nor does he have to bring korbanos. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't shave his head, he doesn't bring korbanos, he doesn't start over again. He gets sprinkled with the afer of the paraduma on days 3 and day 7. And then so it doesn't, so it doesn't undo any of the days that you had already counted prior to this. Those remain. Although the days that he's, let's say, a Nazir, a Mitzorah would not count towards his Nazirus, but any of the Nazirus that he had observed until he had become tamei, so then it remains. And then on day 7, after he gets sprinkled with the efer paraduma, he can already resume his count. The korban ein lo, doesn't have to bring any korbanos. Be'emes amru, they said Yimei Azov ve'Azova v'Yimei Esgerush Mitzora, that the time, if a fellow is Azov or if a woman is Azova, a fellow is Azova, v'Yimei Esgerush Mitzora, and the days that the Mitzora is in quarantine before we know for sure that it's Taras or Elu Olin Lo. In this case, right, the time that a fellow is Azov or a fellow is Azova, or when a person is in quarantine to try and determine if he has Taras or not, so those days do count towards his Nazir's count. Okay. Says the Gemara Velu in Aschachis. This is when the Mishnah had said that for Schachis he doesn't have to start all over again. So Ilan Amesach Al Aretz, that's talking about where you have a tree that is overhanging the land, and there's a mace like under a branch, but you don't know which one. Alright. Ufros Ayotzim and Agadar, and pros are like things that protrude from a wall, so like, stones or beams. Alright. Sounds like fun stuff. Oh. So now the Gemara says Ve'eretz ha'amim. That the Gemara quotes the Mishnah that it said that the lands of the nations you wouldn't have to start over. So Yibardu Eretz ha'amim mishum avira gazu aleh or mishum odum mishum gusha gazu aleh. What's the whole thing about the lands of the nations over here? So apparently, if you go to the lands of the nations, you become Tameh. And the shaila is that the Gemara asked, do you become Tameh because the air of the Eretz Ha'amim is Tameh, or is it because the dirt, the land of the Eretz Ha'amim is Tameh? Tashma, come in here. Well, our Mishnah says that he needs to get sprinkled with the mechatas, the efer paraduma, on day 3 and day 7. If the concern is about the air of the Eretz Ha'amim, so why would you need to have sprinkling on day 3 and day 7? The air alone would not do that. You'd have to come in contact with the land, with the dirt, with the mud. Elo lab mishum gusha. So it must be that it's because of the land that makes you tamei in the Eretz Ha'amim, and that's why you need the sprinkling of the paraduma on day 3 and day 7. Lo lolam emelach mishum avira. No, really, I can make the argument that it is about the air. So it's about the air. Then why do you need the paraduma? V'chikatone ashayre. You're right. You don't taka need the paraduma in that case, because it's just from the air. And when we say that you have to get, when the Mishnah says you get sprinkled on day 3 and day 7, it's not talking about the Eretz Ha'amim, it's talking about the other examples. This talking makes sense. It says also in the Mishnah, vessels that touch a dead body. Now, interestingly, in the Mishnah, I explained that it was talking about cher v'reu kecholo, that if you have, let's say, a metal object that comes in contact with a mace, the metal object would also be an avi avos tumah. But over here we're saying that taka, it would be a different material, which the mace, the corpse, would be an avi avos tumah. This other vessel that touches it would be an avatuma. If that then touches a person, so then that would make them a rishon l'tumah, and it's just for a day. There's no mei chatas. There's no para aduma. So achinam mistam diktani v'chil manogim b'meis hani kelim b'nei azor inun elalav shmamino ashayra. So when it mentions this vessel that we're assuming just becomes an avatuma, and then when it's mitame somebody, so then they would just be a rishon l'tumah. Of course, they don't need the sprinkling of the paraduma on day 3 and day 7. If they're just an avatum, if they're just now a rishon l'tumah. So the Gemara is saying that clearly there are certain things in the Mishnah that the sprinkling of the paraduma does not apply to, and you could say therefore that the Eretz Ha'amim is talking about avira, and you would not actually have to have the sprinkling of the paraduma for going into the airspace of for going into the Eretz Ha'amim and breathing the air. Now that's technically Daf Nun Daled of Masechta Nazir, but I think I'm going to keep going weiter because we're in the middle of a sugya over here. So let's just do this, and we don't have to pick up in the middle tomorrow, and then there'll be less to do tomorrow. So we're going to start in Daf Nun Daled. So we're going to continue on to Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph. Let's say that this question, that this business about is is the Eretz Ha'amim Metame because of the air or because of the mud, the ground. A fellow goes into the lands of the nations in some kind of a trunk or a box. Rebbe says the guy is Tomei. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says the guy is Tahor. My love, Rabbi Sav Mishum Avir, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Sav Mishum Gusha. So let's say that Rabbi who says that the guy is Taka Tomei, he holds that the Eretz Ha'amim is about the air. So even if he's in some kind of a box, and he might not be coming in contact with the ground, but still, he's nonetheless Tomei because of the air. Whereas Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda would say, no, it's Mishum Gusha. It's all about the coming in contact with the land. And if he's in some kind of a box, then he's not coming in contact with the land, and therefore he's going to be Tahor. Okay. Lo, to which the Gemara says Nisht. And the Chuli Amma Mishum Gusha. No, everybody agrees that it's all about the dirt, come in contact with the land, with the mud. Well, if that's the case, then why does Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda say that he's Tahor? Wait, what? If he's going into, so why does Rebbe say that he's Tamei if he's in like a box or something? So my sover oil zaruk shmei oil, my sover lo shmei oil. So we'll say that Rebbe who says that he's Tamei, it's because he holds that a moving ohel, such as this, right? He's in some kind of a box and it's moving. So Rebbe says that he's Tamei because a moving ohel isn't actually considered an ohel that would insulate him from the tumah of the Eretz Ha'amim. Whereas Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says that a moving ohel would be considered an ohel, and therefore he's tahor, according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Right? So my sover ol zaruk shmei ol, my sover lo shmei ol. V'atani, but how can we say that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says that a moving ohel would be considered an ohel? We see takefakert. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda teva she malei kelim. If you have a box that's full of vessels, v'zarka al pnei hameis, and you throw it over a dead body. So you have a box, and in the box are these vessels. Now the box theoretically is an ohel, it creates a separation, and you throw it over the corpse. Tameya, says Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, it's Tameya, but if it was stationary, it would be tahor. So we see that the issue isn't with the with the box. The box is it would be good oil, but the fact that it's moving makes it not a good oil. And Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says it would be tamei. So how could we say that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda on the one hand says that it would be an effective oil, and over here he's saying by the box full of vessels that it is not an effective ohel. Elo tuchuli amu mishum avira. So rather we switch tacts and we say that it's about the airspace. Okay, fine. So if it's about the airspace, then if it's about the air, then why does Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda say that he's tahor? My sarver came into lo shchicha lo gozu be'rabanon, that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says that he's tahor because since it's not so common to go into the Eretz Ha'amim in some kind of a box, so therefore they weren't concerned about it, and they don't make you tamei according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Umay savar afagav lo shchicha gozu be'rabanon. Whereas Rebbe holds that even though it might not be common, the rabbi still made a gzera, and you're going to be tamei. Tanya, and we see this distinction in a brayse. Somebody goes into the lands of the nations in this kind of a box. Tahor, he is tahor. Bekarnu v'svinu v'skaria tamei. But if he's in some kind of a wagon or a boat, so then he is tamei. So we see that there is a difference between. You're right. I mean, we see that the Shiva Teva Migdal is kind of on its own situation, and it would be tahor. So we see, as opposed to like a karan of Sfina of Iskayas, we see that there is a difference that could be made when it comes to Shiva Teva Migdal, to say that it would be tahor, and that would be like Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda. Be by same alternatively, right? Alternatively, you could say it's not right. They don't say that it's about the air. They say it's about the mud, the dirt, the land. But Acha Shemayotzi Rosha Rosha Ruba L'Shem L'Sham Plige. We could say that the machlokus between Rebbe and Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda is about, are we concerned that he might stick out his head and most of his body outside of the box? And if he does that, then he'll become tummy. So V'atani is within the brayso. Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda Omer Nichnas Le'eretz Am B'Shida Tov Migdal Tor Ad Shotzi L'Sham Rosha Arubo. So we see tak in a brayso that says Rabbi Yosef ben Yehuda that somebody goes into the Eretz Amim in some kind of a box, he's tahor until he, as long as he doesn't stick out his head and most of his body. As long as he doesn't stick out his head and most of his body, he'll be tahor. Friends, that was Daf Nundal. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.